I was elbow-deep in a sink of scalding water when my phone buzzed at midnight. 3 messages from Brooke. "Where are you?" And "Answer your phone," and "We're at your place right now." We, plural, not just my sister. I dried my hands and called her back during my final minutes at the restaurant. "Finally," she said. Music and laughter blared behind her voice. "Everyone's here. I told you about this." No, she hadn't. There was no advance warning, no permission, no acknowledgement that this was my apartment, the place I paid for with money earned through 10-hour shifts, chopping and plating and managing in a kitchen that required everything I had to give. "Brooke, what are you doing?" "Having a party. Your place is perfect for it." Perfect for it. My 1-bedroom in Pacific Beach with the stove I'd upgraded myself, the knives I kept sharp enough to split hair, the shelves lined with cookbooks that were part library and part memoir. Everything carefully selected, carefully maintained. "Everyone needs to leave," I said. "I'm on my way home." The drive felt longer than 8 minutes. I was aware of each second in a way I usually wasn't, compartmentalizing the shift still burning in my blood and this new thing, this violation, this assumption that my space was communal property. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head from a recent lunch. "You need to learn to say no." But saying no had never been part of my role in this family. I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who accommodated. The apartment building's lot was familiar. I recognized Brooke's white Audi, another gift from Dad, and took the stairs quickly. The music hit first, then the smell, beer, spilled liquor, perfume, staleness. About 12 people scattered through my living room and kitchen. My bedroom lights blazed. Someone was curled on my couch talking to a stranger. "Hannah, come join." Brooke started, smiling like I was here to celebrate. "Everyone out now." I moved to the Bluetooth speaker and shut it off. The silence was immediate. People began shuffling toward the door with confused energy, like they'd misread the rules. One girl actually rolled her eyes at me. I did not roll my eyes back. I had spent my entire life not showing what I actually felt, maintaining careful neutrality that had become my default expression. When everyone was gone, Brooke remained on my couch. "You didn't have to be so harsh," she said. I looked at my kitchen. Empty bottles scattered the counter. Someone had made a sandwich on one of my good cutting boards. A bottle of red wine had spilled on the rug. "You need to leave," I said to Brooke. "I'm your sister." "I'm aware." "This is insane. I just wanted—" "To what? To use my apartment without asking? To invite strangers into my home? Nobody damaged anything." I gestured toward the wine stain spreading across white fibers. "I can't believe you're being like this," Brooke said, gathering herself into aggrieved innocence. "Mom and Dad gave you those spare keys for emergencies." The spare keys. About 6 months ago, my mother had called with a particular tone, the one she used when making requests that felt like obligations. "Just in case," she'd said. "Just for emergencies. We worry about you living alone." What emergency would require unsupervised access to my private space at any hour? But I'd made copies anyway, because that's how things worked in my family. You said yes. "That key is for emergencies," I said, "not parties. I'm not breaking in. I have a key." "Which Mom and Dad gave you because you're the favorite, and because I was stupid enough to go along with it." The words hung between us. I could see them land, could see Brooke's face reorganize around this truth we both knew, but nobody said out loud. In my family, you didn't point out patterns. You didn't name hierarchies that had structured every interaction since Brooke was born, and I suddenly became the older sister, promoted to accommodator, manager, the one who took up less space. "Get out," I said, moving aside. She left with dramatic slowness designed to demonstrate my unreasonableness. I locked the door and stood in my ransacked apartment and felt something shift. Not breaking, but settling into a different configuration. I cleaned for 2 hours. The wine faded to a pink shadow. I returned pillows to their positions. By 2 a.m, the apartment was restored. I had to be back at work at 11, 9 hours away. It wasn't enough. Working in a professional kitchen requires dissociation. You have to be present in your body while simultaneously existing elsewhere, thinking about timing, the next order, the exponential pressure as tickets keep coming. The physical demands are intense enough that stopping to feel exhaustion means collapse. So you don't stop. You become a machine shaped like a person, moving through the night in controlled adrenaline until the last table finishes and the order window goes dark. This dissociation had become even more useful since the party. For a week, I avoided my family. I didn't answer calls from my mother. I didn't respond to the group chat my father had created, Miller Family Updates. I worked my shifts at Ascent, where the head chef Marcus ran the kitchen with perfectionism that bordered on legendary. I liked working under Marcus because impossible standards left no room for anything except the work itself. My mother called on a Thursday afternoon while I was in the walk-in cooler, taking inventory. The cold turned my breath into clouds. "Why haven't you been answering your phone?" she asked without preamble. "I've been busy." "Too busy for your family?" The classic question. The one that converted any reasonable boundary into character indictment. "What did you need, Mom?" There was a pause. I pictured her in her rarely used kitchen. Pristine sub-zero appliances, marble counters, everything perfect because she never actually cooked. She preferred ordering takeout or having me come over and make things. "Your father wants to present something to the family. Can you come to dinner on Sunday?" "I have a shift on Sunday." "Then the day you have off. You still get days off, don't you?" The implication. My availability was negotiable, my employment secondary. Of course I could arrange my life around her request. "What's this about?" "Something your father wants to discuss together. Please, Hannah, just come." The please came with years of accumulated obligation, with the understanding that saying no was cruelty, with guilt carefully constructed since childhood. "Monday night," I said. "I'll come Monday night." "Perfect. 6 o'clock. I'll make your favorite dinner." She wouldn't. She would order from somewhere expensive and plate it nicely and take credit for it. We would all pretend this was how family dinners worked. Monday came as a day off, which I spent trying not to think about what the dinner would entail. I did laundry. I meal prepped, dicing vegetables in precise, meditative cuts, cooking protein in measured portions. I went to the farmer's market. I called my Aunt Claire, my mother's sister, who lived in Los Angeles, and was honest about things my mother found irritating. "Are you going to their place tonight?" Claire asked. "How did you know?" "Your mother called to make sure I wasn't free. She was checking if I'd be a competing obligation. What's the occasion?" "I don't know. Dad wants to present something." Claire was quiet. "Go, listen, then call me after. I want to know what this is." "It's probably nothing, just business." Or, Claire said, "It's something. And you'll need to process it with someone who isn't going to ask you to sacrifice yourself for family unity." I love my Aunt Claire. The house in Serrano Canyon looked the same as always, similar to every other house in the development, all the correct markers of success displayed. My mother answered the door wearing expensive casual, the kind designed to look effortless while requiring significant effort. Performed happiness, curated happiness, the kind that came before a pitch. "Hannah, come in. Everyone's already here." Everyone meant my father, Brooke, and my grandmother, Margaret, who was sitting with the posture of someone already tired of whatever was about to happen. "Grandma," I said, embracing her. "You look exhausted, sweet girl." "I work a lot." "That's what you do when you're good at something," she said, squeezing my hand in a way that communicated things without words. Grandmother Margaret had lived long enough to acquire cynicism deployed selectively but effectively. Dinner was formal. Modern American cuisine. Beautiful, slightly precious, leaving me still hungry. My father made small talk about business. Brooke talked about a marketing campaign. Nobody asked me anything. After we finished, my father excused himself and returned with a leather folder, the kind used in business presentations, suggesting something important was contained within it. "I want to discuss a family opportunity," he said, "one that could benefit all of us, particularly Hannah." I felt something tighten in my stomach. I have substantial connections in San Diego's dining industry. Over the past months, I've been speaking with colleagues about a restaurant venture, a family venture. He opened the folder. Mock-ups of a restaurant I didn't recognize, tables rendered in pale wood, warm professional lighting, an elegant, simple menu. Farm to table, elevated comfort food. We've secured a location in Little Italy. Lease terms are favorable. The interior design is nearly complete, and we have a chef's menu prepared, pending final approval. I was trying to understand what he was saying. The folder passed around the table. Everyone looked at the images like they were beautiful, and they were, objectively. The restaurant looked like a place I would want to eat. We've been working on branding and public relations, my father continued. We're in final stages of securing financing. What kind of financing? I asked. Small business loans, investor capital, some personal investment from me, but the whole concept hinges on you. There it was. The pivot. The moment when my father revealed this wasn't a family venture. It was a plan requiring my specific labor, my specific talent, my specific credentials. What do you mean it hinges on me? I asked, already knowing. You're the chef. You'd run the kitchen, develop the menu, manage culinary operations. Brooke would handle front of house, management, staff training, a perfect pairing of talents. I looked at Brooke, who was smiling like I should be excited about this, like this was good news arranged for my benefit. You're talking about me starting a restaurant with you without asking me first? We wanted to surprise you, my mother said, to present it as an opportunity. An opportunity requires asking if someone is interested before you sign leases and design menus. The menu isn't signed off yet, my father said, tone correcting a minor misunderstanding. We need your approval. Okay, I don't approve. My father set down his wine glass with careful precision. Hannah, I think you might be reacting emotionally rather than thinking practically. This is a significant business opportunity. Most people would be grateful for this kind of advantage. I have a job where you're a line cook, working doubles and making minimal money. This would be your restaurant, your vision. My name. That was the thing, though. My name wouldn't be anywhere. I could already tell from the mock-ups that Brooks would be featured prominently. The restaurant would be positioned as a family operation, meaning everyone's capital, financial, social, reputational, would be invested, but my labor would be the only thing actually required. I need to think about this, I said. Of course, my father said, satisfied. I've actually been approached about another opportunity, I said, which was a lie designed to create the impression I had options, that I wasn't waiting to be saved by my father's business acumen. What opportunity? Brooke asked, competitive. A new restaurant opening downtown. An executive chef reached out. I'm interviewing next week. This wasn't true. But I was getting better at presenting fictions as fact, when the truth was being systematically disregarded. I stayed another hour, then made an excuse and drove back to my apartment. Once home, I called Aunt Claire. How bad? She asked immediately. I explained everything. The folder. The menu prepared without me. The assumption I would simply fall into line and become the engine powering my father's ambitions. This is classic Robert, Claire said. He builds things and expects other people to maintain them. He's built his life on other people's labor. What do you mean? A pattern. Your grandfather did this to his employees. Worked them until they broke, then found new ones. Your father learned from that. He's done it to colleagues, employees, and now he's trying to do it to you. I don't want to be part of it, I said. Then don't be. But understand that saying no will create significant fallout. Your mother will be upset. Your father will feel rejected. Brooke will feel like you're sabotaging her opportunities. And they'll all be convinced you're selfish. How is not wanting to start a restaurant selfish? It's not, Claire said simply. But they'll frame it that way because recognizing your selfishness would require them to acknowledge they've been selfish all along. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I called a restaurant, not for a job application, but to explore a working interview. The restaurant was Meridian, opened 6 months ago in downtown San Diego's East Village. It had immediately established itself as the kind of place food critics paid attention to. My friend Marcus had mentioned they were hiring, but more importantly, the restaurant was run by Elena Vasquez, who had spent 10 years in New York under respected chefs before returning to San Diego to build something from nothing. I called the main line and asked to speak to someone in the kitchen. Elena answered. "Hi, my name is Hannah Miller. I heard you might be hiring. I was wondering if you'd be interested in a working interview." There was a pause long enough that I thought she might say no. "What's your background?" she asked finally. I told her. Culinary school. 3 years of line cooking in progressively better restaurants, specialization in sauces and proteins, strong fundamentals, comfortable under pressure. "Okay," she said. "Come in tomorrow at 10. Prep service. We'll see what you can do." Prep service is the worst time to impress anyone. It's where actual work happens, where you learn systems and methods and organization, where you're most likely to make mistakes and reveal weaknesses. It's also the only fair way to evaluate a cook. I went home and tried to sleep, and found sleep was impossible. Instead, I lay in bed thinking about the implicit contract I'd made with my father by acknowledging his restaurant proposal, the way my refusal to say yes was being interpreted as temporary negotiation rather than actual boundary. The next morning, I put on clean chef's whites and drove to Meridian. The kitchen was smaller than expected, which meant it was more efficient. Everything had a place. Everything moved with intention. Elena was breaking down fish when I arrived, her knife work precise and economical. "Hannah," she said, not looking up, "we're working on tomorrow's special. Snapper, shaved fennel, citrus vinaigrette. You'll build the components. You'll plate for service tonight." 4 hours. That's what I got to prove myself in a kitchen that wasn't mine, with a chef I'd never worked with, using systems I'd never learned. By the first hour, I understood Elena's philosophy. Clean, direct, no unnecessary embellishment. The food spoke for itself, which meant everything had to be perfect. No hiding behind technique. It was the most honest cooking, which meant the most terrifying. I made mistakes. A julienne was too thick. I cut fennel at the wrong angle. I didn't account for how citrus juice would react with fish until plating, but I recovered quickly from each mistake, learned, and moved forward. Elena watched me work. She didn't say much, just occasionally offered quiet corrections or nods of approval. When service started, she positioned me at the pass, where every plate is reviewed before leaving, where you see immediately whether you've done something wrong, the most honest feedback you can get. The night moved the way good services move. Pressure without chaos. Flow. I was one small part of a larger system that was working. By midnight, when the last table lingered over dessert, I was exhausted in the way that only comes from full engagement. My feet hurt. My back hurt. My hands were scored with small burns, and I felt alive in a way I hadn't in months. Elena poured 2 glasses of wine after we'd finished cleaning. "You're good," she said. "Raw in some areas, but that's fine. More importantly, you respond to direction without getting defensive. You move efficiently." "Thank you," I said. "I'm going to be honest. We're looking for a head chef, not line help. Our previous head chef moved back to New York. I've been doing it myself for a month, and it's unsustainable. I need someone who can develop menu with me, who can lead, who can handle creative work and people management simultaneously. Are you interested?" I couldn't process fast enough. Head chef, not line cook, not sous chef, head chef. The position I'd been working toward for years without knowing if it was achievable. "Yes," I said, "yes, absolutely." "Okay, let me put together an offer. Can you start in 2 weeks?" 2 weeks. Enough time to give notice, to understand what I was committing to ensure this wasn't adrenaline-fueled impulse. "Yes," I said again. "Good. Come in tomorrow, we'll talk details. And Hannah? I've hired a lot of cooks. Most are running from something. That's fine. But when you're here, run toward the work, not just away from whatever you left behind. The difference matters." I gave notice to my current restaurant, creating expected drama. Marcus tried to convince me to stay, offered a sous chef position, reminded me there was stability in what I already had. I appreciated the effort, but I was already gone. 2 days after starting Meridian, Brooke showed up at my apartment. I'd changed the locks, not lightly, but with full awareness it would register as escalation in my family's reading. A locksmith changed the mechanism while I sat on my couch reading a cookbook, trying not to feel guilty that my parents no longer had unsupervised access. When Brooke arrived, she used the intercom, meaning she didn't have keys anymore. I buzzed her up, which was a mistake, but I also wasn't fully prepared for how much I'd committed to boundaries until tested. She came in looking casual but strategic, wearing expensive workout gear despite not appearing to have been to the gym. "Why did you change the locks?" she asked by way of greeting. "Because I didn't want you using my apartment without permission anymore." "That's not fair, we're family. Being family doesn't mean you get to invade someone's space." Brooke sat on my couch, the same couch from the party. I realized suddenly this was her strategy. Normalize access through repetition. Act like the rule had never changed. Treat my stated boundary as aberration rather than new reality. "Mom's upset," Brooke said. "About the locks? About the restaurant? About how you said no without even considering it seriously?" I considered it seriously. I seriously considered that Dad designed everything without asking what I wanted. I seriously considered that you're supposed to manage a restaurant you probably can't actually manage. I seriously considered that my entire life would become supporting success that wasn't mine. "You're being selfish," Brooke said, and I recognized the phrasing immediately. This was how my parents talked about difficult people, about people who didn't cooperate. "I know that's what Mom said, she's wrong. You're supposed to help the family. I am helping the family. I'm helping myself, which is the kindest thing I can do for all of you, because I won't be resentful and trapped." Brooke looked genuinely confused, like this perspective had never occurred to her. And maybe it hadn't. Brooke had been given things her entire life. She'd never had to consider if she was asking too much because she'd never been told no. My role had been to manage her expectation by simply meeting it, and in doing so, I'd trained her to believe everything she wanted was reasonable. "I got the head chef position," I said, because she probably didn't know yet. My mother wouldn't have told her. "What do you mean?" "At Meridian, I'm their new head chef." I watched the information land. Brooke was smart enough to recognize what this meant. A head chef is leadership. It's recognition of expertise and judgment. It's the kind of position that changes someone's professional trajectory. And it was something that Brooke, with her marketing degree and confidence, would never have. "When did this happen?" she asked. "About a week ago. I had a working interview and they offered me the position." "And you didn't mention it?" "Because I was going to tell the family together. But now I'm telling you first." Brooke stood up. I could see her processing, recalculating. The restaurant Dad wanted to build suddenly seemed less like an opportunity and more like a consolation prize. "Dad's not going to like this," she said. "I'm aware." She left without saying goodbye. I locked the door and felt the usual guilt, but also something else. The beginning of peace. My first week as head chef was structured around introduction. Elena and I spent time understanding her approach to food, her thinking about flavor and texture and balance. I studied her existing menu. I ate everything we made, analyzed it, understood what worked and what might be refined. I got to know the kitchen staff, 7 people, all with Elena from the beginning, understandably cautious about a new person changing everything. I didn't change everything. I refined what was already working. Elena incorporated 2 of my new dishes into the menu. It was genuine collaboration, different from my family dynamics in a way that took me days to trust was real. By the end of the second week, I felt like I actually belonged somewhere. My phone buzzed with messages from my mother. Calls I didn't answer. Texts asking me to call back because we needed to talk about this situation. The situation, as if pursuing a professional opportunity was aberration, rather than reasonable response to a business proposal I hadn't asked for. On Thursday, I finally called her back. "Hannah, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks." "I know. I've been busy starting my new job." "Your new job? Can you come to dinner? We need to discuss this like adults." You can tell me now. Your father wants to talk to you. Please, Hannah, just come. I was tired of these conversations. Tired of implied pressure. Implicit understanding that reasonable people would simply show up and discuss things my parents' way. I'll come on Monday, I said. Monday, 6 o'clock, please be on time. The house looked the same. My mother had cooked. Actually cooked. The smell of chicken and garlic and wine filled the house, which meant this was an extended peace offering, conditions created for me to be reasonable. My father was already at the dining room table. He looked older than I remembered, or I was noticing details I'd been trained to ignore. Hannah, he said in greeting, I'm glad you came. Dinner progressed with small talk. My mother described redecorating. My father mentioned a business deal finalizing. Nobody mentioned the restaurant until dessert. I wanted to talk about your decision regarding the restaurant, my father began. I want to understand your reasoning. My reasoning is that you designed a business plan, signed a lease, worked with designers, and presented it to me as a done deal. That's not how partnerships work. You're right, he said, and I was so surprised I forgot what I was about to say. I should have consulted you earlier, but the opportunity was time-sensitive, and I wanted to present something concrete. But it wasn't a presentation. It was a conclusion disguised as an invitation. Okay, and I apologize for that, but the restaurant is still viable. All I'm asking is that you reconsider. I have reconsidered. I have a position at Meridian. I'm their head chef. I watched the information process. Surprise and something that might have been respect, but probably irritation that his narrative was being disrupted by my actual accomplishments. When did this happen? He asked. 3 weeks ago. I interviewed, worked a trial service, and they offered the position. The head chef position? Yes. That's impressive, he said, and I could hear the but coming. But it's also significant responsibility. Managing a kitchen is different from cooking. You'll handle staff, ordering, budgeting, menu development. It's complex. I'm aware. That's why they hired me. I demonstrated I could do those things. And you didn't think to mention this to your family? I didn't mention it because I knew you would try to convince me that your restaurant was a better opportunity, which it isn't. It was your restaurant disguised as a family opportunity, and I wasn't going to be a line item on your business plan. My mother made a small sound. That's not fair, my father said. I was trying to give you an opportunity, to help you. You were trying to use my skills and credentials to build something for your interests, not mine. How is involving my daughter in a business not serving your interests? Because it wasn't involving. You'd already made all the decisions. You just needed my compliance. My father set down his fork. He was preparing to shift tactics. When direct persuasion didn't work, he moved to emotional logic designed to make you feel like your resistance was wounding him. You know, I've spent my entire career thinking about the future, building things that will last. And I thought I was building this restaurant for the family, for you and Brooke, to give you something to build on. Then you should have asked what we wanted. I'm asking now. Now I'm telling you what I want. I want the restaurant to stop. I want you to accept that I have my own career, my own goals, my own life, and I want to be part of this family in a way that doesn't require sacrificing those things. Who's asking you to sacrifice? My mother asked suddenly. I looked at her, and I realized my mother genuinely didn't understand what I was talking about. She thought sacrifice was a dramatic thing, a big gesture. She didn't see the daily accommodation, the constant reshaping to fit other people's needs. I'm going to leave now, I said. I don't think continuing this conversation will be productive. I stood up. My mother looked panicked. My father looked angry. Neither asked me to stay in a way that wasn't manipulative. Over the next 3 months, the pattern was predictable. My father called occasionally about the restaurant, suggesting I could still be involved if I changed my mind. My mother texted articles about work-life balance and family bonds. Brooke ran into friends and told them how disappointed she was that I wasn't part of the family restaurant. Meanwhile, Meridian flourished. Elena and I developed new dishes. I was recognized by a local food critic as one of San Diego's most talented chefs. Elena wrote a recommendation letter so glowing I was embarrassed. We were discussed as one of the best restaurants in the city, and while that came with pressure, it also came with satisfaction of building something genuine. My grandmother called and asked me to lunch. "I heard your father is being difficult," she said without preamble. "He's been difficult. I blocked his number." "Good. He needed consequences. Your mother is pretending you're being unreasonable, but she'll come around eventually. Either way, you'll be fine because you're not dependent on her approval anymore." "I still want their approval," I said. "That makes you human, but you want it the way adults want approval from their parents, as a nice bonus, not survival mechanism. That's the important distinction." We ate lunch. My grandmother told me about books she was reading, documentaries she'd watched, neighbors learning to paint. She was fully alive in a way suggesting she'd never wasted time being what other people needed. "I want to give you something," she said when we finished. She pulled a small box from her purse. Inside was a knife, a proper chef's knife, beautiful and balanced, clearly used with history. "This was my mother's," Margaret said. "She was an excellent cook. This was her favorite knife. She passed it to me, and I've used it for 50 years. Now it's yours." I held the knife with the reverence it deserved. The handle was worn smooth from decades of use. The blade caught light with the gleam of quality steel that had been cared for. "Thank you," I said. "You're welcome. Use it well. A knife is only as good as the person wielding it, and you're excellent." 6 months after I started at Meridian, Elena sat me down in her office. "I'm going to step back from the kitchen," she said. "Just gradually. I'm going to spend more time on business, developing supplier relationships, planning new concepts. I want you to take over as executive chef, full authority, full vision." "Okay," I said. "You don't want to negotiate? Discuss salary?" "I'll want to discuss salary, but yes, okay, I want this." Elena smiled. "Good. Because I've already been telling people that you're the reason this restaurant is so good." Which is true. I had a concept. You made it better. I became executive chef of Meridian at 32 years old. I developed menus. I hired staff. I built a team that understood the philosophy of honest, beautiful food made with intention. My family showed up to dinner one night. My mother, my father, Brooke. I didn't know they were coming until they were seated at one of my favorite tables. I took a moment in the kitchen before going out. Elena knew what was happening. She just nodded. "Hi," I said, standing at their table. "I'm glad you came. The meal was the best I knew how to create. Every dish was perfectly executed. Every flavor was considered. Every plating was intentional." I watched their faces register the quality of what they were experiencing. After they left, my father with a hug that felt stiff but genuine, my mother with a squeeze and a whisper that they were proud of me, Brooke with a comment about how the food was really good. I felt satisfaction that people finally understood what I'd been building all along. Elena approached as I finished service. "That was your family," she said. "Yeah. And I'm glad they finally saw what I've been building. But I'm also glad it wouldn't have changed anything if they hadn't." A year later, Brooke called. "I'm quitting the restaurant," she said. "Dad's restaurant. I'm leaving." "Okay," I said carefully. I realized I was doing it for him, not for me. I don't actually like restaurant business. I don't like managing people. And I was only doing it because it seemed like what I was supposed to do. "What are you going to do instead?" "I don't know yet. But I'm going to figure it out for myself, not because someone else thinks it's good." I felt something ease. Brooke was having the realization I'd been fighting toward, that her own happiness mattered more than other people's expectations. "Good," I said. "I'm happy for you. Would you want to get coffee or something? We haven't actually talked in a long time." We met at a cafe. Brooke looked lighter, less performative. We ordered drinks and sat in afternoon sun. "I'm sorry," she said after a few minutes. "For the party, for using your apartment, for not respecting your space." "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I realized I'd never asked if you wanted me to have a key. I just assumed it was fine because that's how family operates, right? Everyone's supposed to be available to everyone else. I think healthy families operate differently." "Yeah. And I grew up thinking everything I wanted should automatically be accommodated because that's what happened when I was a kid. You just did whatever I needed. I did question it, I said gently. I just wasn't very good at saying no at first. Brooke nodded thoughtfully. Do you think Mom and Dad will ever understand? What happened? I don't know, maybe not fully, but that's not my job anymore. When we left, Brooke hugged me and it felt different. More genuine, less transactional. My life at Meridian became full existence. I was building something. I was recognized for my work. I had collaborators who respected me. I had boundaries that were firm but flexible, allowing life outside the restaurant, friends, travel, rest. I moved to a larger apartment with a better kitchen. I bought things without guilt. I attended food conferences and wine tastings. I developed a professional network having nothing to do with my family. I developed a network of people who valued me for actual competence rather than willingness to sacrifice. My grandmother came to the restaurant for her 85th birthday. I cooked her a tasting menu, dishes built around ingredients meaningful to her, telling a story about who she was. She cried at the first course. "This is what I wanted for you," she said afterward. Not sacrifice, not accommodation. This. 2 years after I'd started at Meridian, I was featured in a national food magazine. The article profiled my work, my approach to food, my philosophy about hospitality. There was a photo of me in the kitchen, concentrating on plating, completely present. My mother texted, "So proud of you. Love, Mom." It was brief and didn't solve fundamental issues in our relationship. But it was acknowledgement that I'd built something worth acknowledging. I texted back, "Thank you. I'm proud of me too." The final shift happened unexpectedly. My father had a health scare. Not serious, but enough to make him think about mortality, about how he'd spent his time, about relationships that mattered. He called. I didn't block the number. "Hannah," he said, "I'm sorry." I waited. "For pushing the restaurant, for not asking what you wanted, for using your talent as leverage. I was wrong." "Yes," I said, "you were. I've been thinking about what happened, and I realized I did to you what my father did to me. I tried to use you to accomplish my own goals without considering what you actually wanted." "Did you figure that out on your own?" I asked. "Or did someone help you?" "Your grandmother called me," he said. "She told me things I needed to hear." "Of course she had." "I don't know if I can fix this," he continued, "but I want you to know that I understand what I did and I'm sorry." "I appreciate that," I said, and I did. "Maybe we could have lunch," he said. "Just the two of us, no agenda, just a conversation." I considered this, and then I said yes. The lunch happened on a Saturday at a neutral restaurant. We sat across from each other, and for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't managing his emotions. I was just present. "I realized I've done that my whole life," he said. "I've taken other people's work and built my own success on it. My employees, colleagues, even you." "Yes," I said. "The restaurant I built with Brooke isn't doing well. It's mediocre. And I think it's mediocre because Brooke doesn't want to be there, and the kitchen is good but not exceptional because I didn't force you to be part of it." I didn't need him to feel regretful about the restaurant not succeeding. "I don't want to be part of your restaurants," I said. "I want to be part of my life, which I am, which I'm building." "I know, and I'm glad. I'm proud of you." When we left, my father said, "Can I call you sometime? Not to ask you to do something, just to talk?" "Yes," I said, "you can do that." Years later, when people asked about my journey as a chef, I told them about the kitchens, the chefs I'd learned from, my philosophy about food and hospitality. I didn't usually tell them about family dynamics that had nearly defined my life, the suffocation of being the reliable one. The moment I finally understood that taking care of myself was the most responsible thing I could do. But when someone told me about their own struggles, about family pressure, about sacrifice that didn't feel voluntary, about being asked to be smaller than they were, I told them the truth. Saying no to people you love is terrifying, but saying yes to yourself is what makes the yes to other people actually meaningful. I told them about my grandmother, who taught me that a life well lived is the only argument that matters. I told them about Elena, who showed me what collaboration looked like when both people came as equals. The restaurant continued to thrive. I eventually bought it with my own financing, my own decisions, my own vision. My family came to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to be what they'd tried to make me, and I became the chef I was always capable of being, not because I was obligated to, but because I chose it. Because I woke up every day and decided this was what I wanted, that this was worth the effort, that this was a life that was genuinely mine. In the end, that was the revolution. Not burning bridges, but finally understanding you can't build anything real unless you're building it for yourself.